feeling this music. I'm feeling this music.
Yeah, good switch up for episode 2.
Good switch up for episode 2. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Know Your Personnel podcast. I'm Nathan Hawthorne here with my co-host, Jarod McEnroy. Again, what are we here to talk about, Jarod, with Know Your Personnel?
Yeah, this week we got a few different things. We got to wrap up the Super Bowl. We're going to talk about that. We had the Waste Management Open and the PGA that we're going to dive into a little bit. We'll talk a little NBA trade deadline. And then, you're going to hear us rant about a couple things that are kind of making us a little upset this week. Yeah, let's get into it. Did I miss anything?
No, you didn't miss anything. I just want everyone to be clear. There will be no shortage of rants on this show. Okay, we're going to talk about what we want to talk about, and it's going to come from the heart. It's going to come from passion. It's going to come from knowing our personnel. Okay, so Super Bowl, I think the big story is the defenses. That was really what stole the show. Like, truthfully, on both sides, Seattle played great. Patriots are trying to hang in there, and large and so did in the first half. What were you seeing out there from both defenses?
Yeah, I think it came down to two different things for each team. On the Seattle side of the ball, they're really just making Drake May uncomfortable. I think he didn't know what he was going to get, whether it'd be a 4-man rush who somehow still found a way to get to him and make him rush his reads, or they would just randomly bring pressure out of nowhere. We saw a couple DBs come through that looked like they were lined up in coverage, just disguising it really well, and they were able to get some pressure on him. So from the Seattle side, it really came down to just making Drake May feel uncomfortable. And then on the other side of the ball, Gonzo played out of his mind. He was shadowing JSN the whole game. He was kind of limiting where Sam Darnold could go with the ball. But their defense, they let them in the red zone, and I think that's what ended up killing them. Is they weren't having the 3 and outs that Seattle had, and I think it cost them obviously on the scoreboard. Kind of death by 1,000 cuts, death by 1,000 field goals. Yeah, that's kind of what I took from it in terms of the defensive side of the ball. What about you?
Yeah, I thought both defenses played very well. I think the biggest difference, I think, was just Sam Darnold getting rid of the ball versus Drake May not. There was pressure on Sam Darnold throughout the course of the game. I think he only completed 19 of 38 passing. So the Patriots did a great job of making him uncomfortable. But on the flip side, they gave up a lot of rushing yards to Kenneth Walker. And granted, it was only 4.5 yards a carry, because that's going to win you a football game if you're doing that. But they also strangely had 4.5 yards a carry on the Patriots side of the football.
Yeah.
What really happened was you talked about the blitzes, sending Witherspoon and Woolen coming off the edge. Those were absolute drive-killing sacks. And to me, that was the bigger difference, was not just that Drake May was taking sacks. He was taking game-changing. He was taking drive-killing sacks where, you've gotten 2 first downs. You're kind of putting a drive together. Boom, now you're way behind the sticks, and you can't dink and dunk. You can't run the ball, and you're screwed. And the way that Seattle's back end was covering, he had nowhere to go with the football. And I think he probably missed a few throws, and that's the inexperience we see from Drake May. You can't see guys wide open. Sometimes you have to throw them open. And I think that high level of activity and that intensity from that Seattle back end with Imanwari, with Witherspoon, with one, just kind of made him scared to let that ball fly. So tip the cap to Mike McDonald, what he put together on that defensive side of the football. Vrabel, I thought, put together a great defensive effort. But yeah, death by 1,000 field goals, you let them into the red zone. Your offense is off the field for an extended period of time, and they just can't catch a rhythm. That decided the game. But you said one thing that was very important in our last episode, and that's if they scored like 10 to 13 points, they were not going to win the game. And lo and behold,
you're not going to win the Super Bowl with 10 points.
You're not going to win the Super Bowl with 10 points.
You're not going to win it with 13 either.
No, you are not.
At the end of the day, I think it was the tale of one team, and I think it was Seattle was dominant, and it felt like the Patriots were more bend, don't break mentality. So, they didn't let okay, JSN almost broke free for a walk-in touchdown that Darnold ended up overthrowing. But outside of that, I mean, they really didn't let any big plays kill them. So they were playing really good. But again, it was bend don't break. It wasn't dominate. And Seattle dominated. Again, they made Drake May look like he was seeing ghosts out there. A little throwback to Sam Darnold, but
I mean, goodness gracious, did that change our opinion on Drake May? Are we a little bit more concerned about Drake May going into next year than we were? Because I know the whole easiest schedule narrative keeps being brought up, but now it kind of makes me worry about what does Drake May have? I thought he had a bigger arm than what he displayed, and I don't know if maybe he was playing through an injury that people weren't aware of or the severity we weren't aware of, but it didn't look like it was flying out of his hand. It looked like it was fluttering, and that was kind of concerning.
yeah, I think it says less about the future and it tells a better story of this year. I think just because the Patriots were winning games, I think everyone was like Drake May is this incredible athlete. They weren't playing healthy teams. They played a bunch of teams who ended up firing their coaches. Just a lot of that's the strength of schedule you're talking about. It really played into their favor. So I think it told a better story of the reality of this year rather than moving forward. I think he's going to grow. He's going to continue to get better. I mean, he's in his second years, um, playing in front of that many people in the Super Bowl and playing against a defense like that. Like that's a tall task for any team. I mean, Matt Stafford lost the week before, and he's a 19-year vet. How many years is he at this point?
Cannot count that
So
high.
yeah, I think you make a lot of good points. He didn't look the same, but I think it had nothing to do with ability, and it had more to do with comfort. He wasn't comfortable.
Mm-mm.
He wasn't ready for that kind of defense in that moment. So yeah, we'll give him a break. We'll give him a pass. But the next couple of years, we'll be watching him. That second year QB curse is a real thing. I don't know if you saw that the list of names of QBs who made it to the Super Bowl in their second year who never made it back. Joe Burrow, Dan Marino. You know, there's a lot of names out there.
Joe Burrow's still got time. Joe Burrow's still got time.
Yeah,
But we now have a quarterback who was largely considered a bust, gets back to the Super Bowl, doesn't have a stellar game. He has stellar games throughout the season, kind of a little bit up and down, closed very strong. Super Bowl, just kind of a ho hum game. What did you see kind of from Sam Darnold? Because what I was feeling like is he made the throws he needed to make, and he prevented bad plays from happening.
yeah.
He didn't get Seattle behind the sticks, trying to make escape a sack and try and do more than he should, throw a bad interception or take an even worse sack. He was like, "All right, I'm gonna get rid of the ball here. I'm gonna take my check down." And I thought that made a big difference in the game. What say you?
Yeah, he showed a lot of maturity, I think. I think over the last few years, obviously he hasn't been in many good situations. And then going to Minnesota, finally he has a full team that he can actually win with, and he did. And then he found himself in the playoffs, and I mean, he kind of played them out of it. And then there was a lot of games this year for Seattle, even where he was making life a lot harder on them, turning the ball over, making dumb decisions, trying to force things he probably didn't have to. But once the playoffs hit this year, he flipped a switch. His turnover numbers were insanely low. I don't think he had a turnover, actually.
Not one that I can
We'd
remember.
have to look at that. But yeah, I mean, again, it just came down to the maturity he was showing was incredible. The decisiveness. If his first read wasn't there, second read wasn't there, felt the pressure, he got rid of it. Um, Now there were there were a couple of questionable throws in that game where he got a little lucky.
He
He
almost threw a couple
Yeah, he tried to fit the
pick
ball in a couple
sixes.
windows,
No doubt.
but I think when you're playing it again, I feel like every one of those plays was against Christian Gonzalez. And when you're playing against a corner like that who really just is able to read where a throw's going and break on it, it looks a lot worse than it is. But yeah, I mean, I think what we saw from Sam Darnold was clinical. It was a Super Bowl winning performance. He knew what he needed to do with the defense that he had. He knew his personnel, and he did what he needed to do to get it done, and he did it. So I mean, hats off to him. And It's gonna be interesting to see what he looks like next year without Kubiak. I think depending on who they end up hiring and who ends up getting that job, we'll really see if this guy is it or not. What
Yeah,
about
not
you? What do you think of Sam Darnold?
a lot of the same stuff, so I don't wanna rehash it. He put on the performance that he needed to, but I think next year is going to be interesting. Mike McDonald knows what he wants to see on offense. Because you won the Super Bowl, you kind of lost out on that early shuffle of good offensive coordinator candidates. So, yeah, are you going to go with an internal hire? Are you gonna go try and poach somebody? What is going to be the case for your next hire? Because you're gonna wanna repeat. You've still got a young roster. You're not paying Sam Darnold too much money. Like, this could it's hard to repeat a Super Bowl in the NFL, but this team has the potential to do it, and maybe we get into that later. I want to quickly just shout out to Christian Gonzalez. He kind of got lost in the Patriots shuffle with him being so poor the past couple of years. And then this year, obviously, he's getting all the love. And then in the Super Bowl, he showed exactly why teams are scared to throw at him. You think your guy has a step at him, he flips his hips, closes the distance, and makes a play on the ball. I can't tell you how many times he was targeted and you think, "Oh, wow, what a great route." And boom, he's just back in position. He's so incredibly talented, he's so incredibly smooth. So I just wanted to tip the cap to him real quick. Like that is teach tape if you're a defensive back.
Yeah, 100%. I do wanna touch on one thing you actually mentioned, and this goes back to my rant that I had last episode about the coaching cycle. They need to move. I understand they want to hire, they want to start the process. This is a long off season. Teams are already out of it. I get it. But then to punish the teams that are in the Super Bowl for having to make adjustments to their coaching staff, and more often than not, the teams that do end up in the Super Bowl are the ones who get their coordinators poached.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're in bad positions again. Like you said, pretty much everybody's off the board that they probably would have wanted to hire, at least interview. They gotta level the playing field on the coaching hiring because there's no way Seattle's capable of holding interviews when they know that their OC is gonna go, but they also have to prepare for a Super Bowl. It just kinda puts them in a terrible position, and they gotta get that figured out for sure.
Yeah, and I don't know what the solution is. I don't think you can say, "Hey, organizations be coachless until essentially halfway through February, borderline March."
I don't see
Yeah,
why
it's hard
not.
it's hard it's hard. Can you leave an organization headless for that long
Yeah, for
as
sure.
a football team? Because it takes a lot to get your staff together. Because it's not just your coordinators, right? Then it's who your coordinators wanna hire to be their position coaches, your other assistants, maybe your training staff needs a turnover. Like, you're talking about massive building changes, even when you're just changing a coordinator, because then coordinators take their assistants with them, so it's not just that one guy, you
I
know?
hear you. I hear you, but at the end of the day,
Am I
if
am
you're
I
if
accidentally
you're moving
making
the
the case for your
timeline.
point?
Yeah, I mean, if you move the timeline to it doesn't matter if it happens middle of February. Everyone's on vacation right now anyways. They're with their families, they're in Turks and Caicos, they're doing whatever they're doing. Why not just move the timeline to mid-February once the Super Bowl is over and then everybody hits a hiring blitz, gives us more to talk about, which is good. Uh, I was actually thinking about this earlier. The NFL has become such a year-long process now with how we're able to talk about, at the beginning of the year we're getting into Super Bowl stuff, then immediately we start talking about coaching, then it's draft, combine, everything like that, free agents. Then all of a sudden, next thing you know, it's
It's
already
training
time
camp.
for training camp. Yeah. So, and then we're into the season. So they're doing a really good job, and I think this would make that even better because now we can move that coaching hiring cycle till after the Super Bowl. And now we have more to talk about. So I think it would benefit everybody at the end of the day, but don't need to harp on that too much.
Speaking of coaches, I think there was ten new head coaching hires this year, which is incredible. It makes it hard to look at next year and say, "Hey, who are the early favorites for Super Bowl in 2027?" Who are we even looking at? There's been so much change, even at some top
Yeah.
tier teams. Like, typically, you'd look at the Ravens or the Bills, you're like, "Oh, yeah, definitely next year might be their year," and I'm not saying it isn't this year, I'm just saying there's a few more questions surrounding a lot of different teams, a lot of different divisions. So I'm curious kind of where you're thinking who's our way too early Super Bowl champs next year?
Way too early Super Bowl champs. I mean, there's a couple ways you can go at this, the obvious ones. Maybe the Chiefs come back. Who knows what Patrick Mahomes looks like? Maybe the San Francisco 49ers kind of make a comeback. So there's kind of like the obvious ones, or there's just, who might surprise us. In terms of obvious ones, I mean, I just named them, but why not Seattle again? I mean, their building isn't going to look that much different. It seems like Kenneth Walker wants to come back. That's really their only big free agent. So now they have their first round pick. They have all their picks this year. Uh, Maybe they make a trade and get even better. Maybe they go get a Max Crosby or somebody who's on the trading block that really, when you have a team that's built this well in from the draft, I think it gives you the ability to trade your current assets to go get the luxury items, like Green Bay goes and gets a
Mm,
Micah Parsons. They just the things that make your team, even better and richer. I mean, we saw it with the Niners. They really filled out that roster when they were on their heater. Obviously, their Super Bowl window closed because I'm not a Brock Purdy fan or a believer, but I digress. Won't get into that too much.
that's another topic. Another topic for another time.
Yeah. So I mean, my pick again, I guess. Why not the Seahawks? We'll see what happens. That's I think a repeat might be in the cards. I don't like anybody else. I look at everybody and I can find a ton of different what ifs and holes. I'm interested to see who you come up with, but that's
Yeah.
really all I got for you.
Well, I'm gonna stay in division with the NFC West. I think the Rams, just because of how they look offensively. Now, granted, it's going to be what does Sean McVay do on defense, and does he finally decide to pay a little bit more attention to special teams? That's going to be a big part of next year. I think they lost another offensive coordinator this year. I believe somebody hired. Can't even remember who it is. I believe they hired him. Got to know my personnel a little bit better there. But their offense is going to be strong. You've got Puka Nacua, Matt Stafford. You're gonna be moving the football. Devontae Adams still there. Maybe he retires because he's sick of something, but I'd like to think he's still coming back. I This is gonna sound crazy because 'cause I'm not a Nick Sirianni fan at all, but I kinda like the Eagles, and I did a little bit of a dive on Sean Mannion. I know I was kinda making fun of that in episode 1, but I'm bought in.
Hey,
He's a former quarterback. He's from the McVay Shanahan tree, right? And not that all of them know exactly what the secret sauce is, but it means you're probably going to revive your run game, which struggled last year for a number of reasons. I know they had some in-house issues with the run game coordinator being kind of demoted and the offensive line coach who was the run game coordinator. Like there was this whole inner turmoil. But I think if those things get resolved, you get Saquon Barkley going again. You take a lot of the pressure off of Jalen Hurts to not make throws, but feel like he has to throw the ball because AJ Brown is scheming at him. You can scheme AJ Brown open a little bit better, and I think everybody wins. So Sean Mannion, I guess, is kind of one of those guys that was spoke about highly before getting this step up, kind of one of your D'Amico Ryans type guys in that situation. So good for him, and we'll see how it pans out.
yeah. Hey, I'm gonna jump on that train with you. I kind of forgot about the Eagles for a second, but
They're still
they're gonna
really good. Their roster is still incredible.
I will say AJ Brown will not be in a Eagles uniform probably, but I think they're gonna clean house on the bad eggs in the locker room. I think they're gonna rebuild the culture a little bit. I don't think Sirianni's lost the clubhouse entirely. I think they
I think
certainly
he has.
have. I think there's definitely some cracks. It's whether they fill those cracks or they let it all break down. It could be one or the other. It could be a Sirianni firing and a whole rebuild coming from the Eagles, or at least a retooling, or we could see him back in the Super Bowl. So that'll definitely be an interesting one to check out. I know we wanted to get into a little bit playoff teams next year. We'll take a step back from way too early Super Bowl and every year, there's usually 1 or 2 teams that miss the playoffs this year who end up making it next year. So tell me a little bit about who you think those teams are gonna be. Who do you have your eye on going into next season? Not necessarily as a Super Bowl favorite, but at least to make the jump into the playoffs and kinda make some improvements.
The AFC South, I think, is interesting with the Tennessee Titans. I think that they've got an opportunity to take a big step. Again, I love the what Robert Saleh can do for you defensively as a head coach, and I think that with Brian Daboll, they can unlock Cam Ward. So that's a team I think is going to make another big jump. I don't know about, division winning, but I think that there's an opportunity maybe they hop into the wild card.
God, you love the Titans.
I love the Titans. I don't know if it's the uniforms and maybe sometimes I still think about Steve McNair and it just gets me going, but I really love what I'm seeing with the Titans. I think you got to look at a team like the Kansas City Chiefs. We don't know what the timeline is for Pat Mahomes, but it's hard to ignore what his situation is or isn't going to be. Man, who else outside of that? Dolphins, you can't discount. Dolphins had a tough route this
I'm
year,
ready to
so I'll
discount them.
give you the all right, then hey, then let's go ahead and discount them. And I think in the NFC, that NFC North is difficult, so I think this might be a year where the Green Bay Packers actually miss the playoffs.
Mm,
Also, kind of
okay.
reversing the question a little bit, I think that they end up missing the playoffs. Lions were a team this year that kinda had a tough go towards the end of the year. Maybe they get things going in the right direction again. I'm not really giving a firmly committed answer here outside of just the Titans, who I, for some
Yeah.
reason, have an extremely high conviction in. Uh, but man, like, I just think that they got something.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. With the Lions stuff, I have a couple obvious ones. I think the Chiefs could make a run back again, depending on who they end up signing at quarterback. I think there's a few, like, viable options in their roster overall. They have an opportunity in the draft and in free agency to really, get a couple more pieces to round out that roster again. As long as you have Andy Reid at head coach, obviously you have a chance, so Lions, of course, they're gonna bounce back, they're gonna get healthy, and they do need to get better on the pass rush. So I think if they make those changes and they'll be back. But my couple not so obvious ones, I think the Falcons are gonna make it in. I think Stefanski's gonna go in there and
Mm.
he's gonna make some things happen with that Falcons team. So I like his fit there. I like what the roster looks like right now. And again, they've started filling holes. They have a full draft in front of them. We'll see what they do with it. But I like what the Falcons got going on. And then my AFC team was going to be the Colts. I think the Colts barely missed it this year from one quarterback getting injured. But what I saw with their rosters, they've invested in their defense. Their defense looked not just like good, but they looked like they could be great
They were a top 8 defense for sure.
on all three levels of the defense. I think they look great. Now, what's going to be interesting is where they fill in a few holes. I don't know if Pittman is a free agent, but I know he may be looking elsewhere. Alec Pierce is a free agent. They're losing some depth at the receiver position. Obviously, they got rid of Downs in the trade for Sauce Gardner. Um, it'll be interesting to see what their wide receiver room looks like, but I mean, they have Jonathan Taylor, so their run game's always going to be solid. So they'll at least have that to fall back on. Their line, although injured last year again, along with the quarterback, their line has great pieces. So I would say look out for the Colts to make a comeback. That's my AFC pick.
What wasn't it AD Mitchell? I thought it was AD Mitchell that
AD
went
Mitchell. Yep.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
You're right.
okay, yeah.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah,
Right.
I couldn't
Yep.
remember because
Sorry.
for a moment there, I was convinced it was Josh Downs. He
Correct.
almost had
Yep.
me. And then the Ravens, hard to think that with Jesse Minter, there's a lot of talent on that defensive side of the football already. All Minter has to do is implement his scheme. Now, who they hire at offensive coordinator or who they did hire, I'm honestly not even sure. That that's interesting. I think Lamar Jackson running out of time isn't the right word, but running out of time to prove that, you're worth I think his cap hits like 68 million or something crazy like that, and then next year I think it touches the 70s even maybe.
I
Just
think
a
it's less
lot.
about it's
It's just
less about
it's a
him
lot of
running out of time
it's
and
a
more
lot of money to spend on your quarterback. So when I say run out of
I
time,
guess.
that you can't fill out that roster, you have one more season where you're kinda in and out being injured, not because he's not a great quarterback, but just because he's taken too many hits over the course of his career. It's like he's gonna run his own self out of time.
Yeah, I don't think they'll give up on him. I think he will request a trade and firmly want to move on from the situation before they will ever have to. And I think this is the year that decision gets made. Either they dominate, they look good, he believes in the roster, or come trade deadline, he's ready to get moved. Or it could even be they're out of the playoffs, he feels semi-injured, and then he decides he just wants to sit the rest of the year and he'll get traded next offseason. I think this is going to definitely be the year that tells us what Lamar Jackson's future in Baltimore looks like.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, if he leaves, he's had a great time in Baltimore. He's got
We
a
got a
great time.
spot in Miami for him ready to go.
A spot in Miami. Atlanta, I thought should have taken a look at him a couple years ago, when he was a free agent, but, neither here nor there. I do think that the AFC West division, I think is going to be what people thought it was gonna be this year. 3rd year of Bo Nix now. Justin Herbert, 3rd year with Jim Harbaugh. Plus, you've got Mike McDaniels as the offensive coordinator. You're assuming the Chiefs get better. Raiders are probably just going to be a wild card team. Probably not a team you want to play, but they'll be they'll be just no. I don't mean a wild card playoff team. I mean like
Yeah, no, I picked that up. Yeah,
I just
yeah,
mean like you're not
that's
sure
not
what
your
you're going to
sleeper.
get
Yeah,
when you try to play. By no means sleeper, but that offense could get wicked fun. So that's
2 years from now, the Raiders might be looking different though. I think who knows if they end up going with the Mendoza going that route, or if they go trade the pick route. But if they trade this pick, man, I'm telling you, they could they could get the Jets to buy into Mendoza and then really go in on the next draft because there's obviously a ton of big names that are going to be coming in the next draft at quarterback. Why not just get a fast rebuild right now? Go get 2 first rounders this year from the Jets. Maybe get a second or a third out of them too. I think the Jets are desperate enough to make something like that happen. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what the Raiders look like, but definitely not a wild card playoff team this year.
no, not a wild card playoff team. All right, what do we
Cool.
got next? What do we
Yeah,
got next?
that's all I got for NFL. You got any closing statements while you're in there? I know you wanted to touch on the Super Bowl MVP really quick.
My gosh, we skipped it. Super Bowl MVP, Jason Myers, stand up. Where you at? He's the only one putting points on the board. The only one. If it could have been anybody else, it should have just been the whole Seattle defense. Kenneth Walker, K9. I love you. You won me a fantasy championship 2 years ago. I've got so much love for you. But give the award to the guy that did the most valuable thing. He put points on the board. I don't want to hear anything else. It's that simple.
So he didn't help get them into field goal range.
No, that's not how it works. You know
Okay, that's
this.
fair. No,
You
I'm
know
just
this.
asking a question. I'm just
It's a team.
clarifying
It's
here,
a
playing
team.
devil's advocate.
Did Kenneth Walker make his own hole?
No, that's true. Yeah, no, I get you. I hear you.
Sam Darnold run the route
He
for
had
the receiver for
150
him to throw the
all-purpose
ball.
yards.
So then give the MVP to the O-line.
Well, you can't. You gotta give it to one person.
So
That's not how the
and
award
the
works.
one
Now we're talking
person you
about
give it
going
to
outside of the
is
scope of the
Jason
award.
Myers for putting points on the board.
No kickers ever won before, by the way.
And how amazing would that have been? This year where there's really not like a guy to obviously give it to, create headlines, give it to the kicker, show some kickers some love. Also, speaking of Kenneth Walker, did you see what Schneider said at the parade today?
Oh yeah, how he's trying to
He
negotiate
was
his
out I'm like,
contract
"Hey,
mid
Kenneth
parade.
was trying to negotiate with me just 3 minutes ago." Like, what are you doing?
I
You
don't.
want the
The
man to
other.
walk out of the building and be like, "All right, take Charbonnet," and I'm out of here. That's
Yeah,
crazy. That was crazy behavior.
that was crazy behavior. Another piece of that is I haven't heard this guy interview before, but that was not the voice I was expecting to come out of that man. I was expecting a deep voice, like, something that fits his short, stocky stature a little better, but that caught me by surprise. So
A
I
little
think the
bit.
Super Bowl MVP this year was just on all fronts a big shock.
Yeah, it was shocking that it was not Jason Myers.
You sound
On
like
to the
somebody who
PGA
had
Tour.
you sound like somebody who had money on that.
I cannot confirm or deny whether I had any cheddar on the game at all in any way, shape, or form. But I did have money on Hideki Matsuyama closing out the Waste Management Phoenix Open, or I guess now just the WM Open, and he
Mhm.
failed to do it. Bogey on 18 in the trap in the playoff. I'm sorry. Yeah, bogey on 18 in the trap, playoff hole in the water. What happened?
Yeah, the funny thing is I was just talking about how they were analyzing the length in the game now, and I get sick and tired of the people complaining about people hitting the ball too far, all this stuff, and then all week people are flying. That bunker hasn't been in play for anybody the entire weekend, and I'm like, okay, this is a hole that kind of makes sense for that narrative of they're just flying it way over this thing. This thing's in play for absolutely nobody. And then the final hole of the tournament, it comes into play. Terrible drive. I mean, he was struggling with driver all day. I think it was in his head. I think he missed 13 fairways, some crazy stat.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that also just is a testament to how good the rest of his game is. His iron play, his short game. He's rock solid. He played rock solid the whole time, but it's the importance of posting a score. Gotterup kind of fell back a little bit in the tournament. He was leading early on, and final day he posted a score. He got in. He surpassed Scotty, who was in at 15 under. He got a 16 under posted and sat back, hit the range, and Hideki folded. I mean, it's a tough situation to be in. Once the drive goes there, you're kind of done. You're at the mercy of the lie. The lip got in the way, and he struggled. The playoff wasn't any better. Obviously, finding the water even worse. But
Yeah.
um,
What do you think about Chairgate? Apparently the
yeah, I
fan
saw
making him
that.
back off. I get backing off, and I guess he had to do it twice, throughout the day. Hit a little fairway finder, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, it's the
Have a
tournament too. It's the
have a
venue.
little bit. Right, like, you've had the energy. Hideki, he's won a major. It's not like he hasn't played in these kind of situations before, so that surprised me that he cracked in that fashion. But, yeah, he just didn't hit
Yeah.
his driver straight all day. He was putting lights out, finding ways to get up and down. But, yeah, to your point, Gotterup birdied, what, 5 of his last 6? Just went
Yeah.
on an absolute heater to
An
close it out.
absolute tear.
And when you're hot like that and then you get on the range, like, you can't wait for that playoff to come because
Mhm.
Hideki has to drop a shot, so Hideki's like, "Man, I can't drop a shot. Oh, man, I dropped the shot, now I'm in the playoff," and you're like, "I just made it to the playoff.
Yeah.
If I do it, this is sick."
I don't
It's
think
just
and
2 completely different perspectives.
I will correct myself on one thing. I don't think it was necessarily Hideki choking from the pressure. I think he choked under the he just choked from the lack of comfortability with his driver. He's clearly again, when I think once you win the Masters, you go into any other tournament, you're kind of just if you win, great. If not, whatever. I think he just struggled with the one club that day and ended up biting him in the butt. But yeah, man, going five birdies on your last 6 holes is a crazy way to get yourself back in the tournament.
Yeah. He
And
posted, I think,
Scotty, I
2
thought
rounds in the
Scotty was
70s.
I
Friday, Saturday, 2 rounds in the
chance.
70s. Yeah, Scotty certainly had a chance. He put up the 15 under. I mean, obviously, same deal. He would have needed Hideki to come back just a little bit further. If he didn't play with, 2 thumbs on on Thursday, like, we're probably looking at another Scotty win.
Yeah, 100%. I think it was a fun tournament overall though. There was a lot of names on and off the leaderboard. For a second, we thought Thor Bjornsson would Thor Bjornsson would pull away with it.
Mm,
He had that eagle putt on 15, um, and then a tough bogey on 16. I wanna say bogey on 17 also.
Yeah.
So he kind of folded under the pressure, but the young guys right now are unbelievable in this game, and I think it's gonna cause a lot of uncomfortable conversations if they keep it up when the next Ryder Cup comes up. Even the President's Cup this year, I think they're gonna have some uncomfortable conversations because I'm gonna throw some names out there, and they were all borderline cuts on this last Ryder Cup, and that's Gotterup. Akshay Bhatia was in the conversation.
Mhm.
Maverick McNeely. All of these guys are playing out of their mind right now. I want to say all of them were top 10 finishes this last weekend. I'm going to throw Thorbjornsen in there. He's more of a current. He's starting to heat up a little bit and his game looks great. But if we're talking about winners and losers of the weekend, I think the young guys are making a push right now.
What What's getting me about the young guys, I love the success that they're having. What I'm not seeing is a lot of staying power. I'm seeing a lot of guys who are getting hot with the driver, and so you can make a run, right? When you're hitting driver now, instead of hitting 8 iron in, these guys are hitting wedge, right? And like that's been the biggest difference in this chase of distance in the game of golf. And I don't see a lot of staying power in terms of sharp games. Like I've yet to see a new guy come in who's just got it top to bottom, works the ball both ways, a genius with the hands around the green. Like I haven't just seen somebody where I'm confident in every part of their game, and then mental side included. Like I think Gotterup's a guy who's on a heater. I think about a guy like Jake Knapp who's won, right? And obviously had a tragic situation happen in his life. I hope he's doing away and doing well, but kinda reminds me of Cam Champ. You get hot with the driver, you hit some good shots, and then, people in a couple years maybe don't quite remember who you are, how good you really were, and that's kinda my concern is all these guys right now, they're being called ball strikers. When they're not ball strikers, they're just hitting the ball far when they hit it well.
And they're
You know what
clipping
I
nice
mean?
wedges. Yeah, it's
So I'm like, I'm not seeing the game. So when you talk about
scores a
uncomfortable
score.
conversation, a score is a score, but Matt Wolff had great scores in college. A lot of guys a lot of guys on the Corn Ferry Tour, week in and week out, are putting up great scores. But
Yeah. I think
but
on the
you
contrary to
start
this,
talking about President's Cup? President's Cup and Ryder Cup is different golf.
I hear you,
It's not the same. The
but the
pressure is
US
different, the course setups are different. What's demanded out of you as a golfer, your entire game is tested. It's so different.
but the veterans on the US side are where I think the conversation really gets uncomfortable. We have people like Jordan Spieth is playing inexcusably bad. Yet another miscut this week. He's out of the conversation at this point. JT obviously had battling injuries. He's I mean, if your best availability is wait, or what's the saying?
Your best ability is
Ability is
availability.
availability. Yeah, that's the one. Yep. I'm bad with sayings. We'll figure that out as the time goes on with this pod. But I think I think those names, Sander Schauffele playing not very good as of late. There's Ricky's not convincing anybody. There's just a lot of holes in this old veteran team that we thought we had built out. And a lot of the solid names that you're talking about, the Justin Rose, the Tommy Fleetwood, the Rory McIlroy, the people who can go in and work the ball both ways, play every facet of the game, at least good to great. They're all on the other teams. None of them are playing on the US side. I'm talking about strictly from a US perspective. When those conversations come around, outside of your Scotty, your Bryson, who are we talking about, man? There's holes, there's openings, and there's guys ready to fill them.
Yeah,
That's all I'm
there's
saying.
a lot of holes. You start looking at guys like Ben Griffin, Russell Henley, Chris Gotterup,
Yeah, get those names out of here, by the way. I don't wanna
JJ
hear.
Spawn, Cam Young, who's a guy who's played on,
Yeah,
teams
uh,
before.
he should be on the young guy name list, by the
Yeah,
way. He's
Sam
still
Burns,
young.
I guess it's weird. To me, it hurts my heart to see what Liv did specifically to President's Cup and Ryder Cups teams for the United States without having the points to qualify. And then, what happens when guys go to Live, they take the money, maybe they're not as sharp as they used to be, but man, like there was such a good collection of US golfers
Who
and
did we lose? Tell me that,
uh
outside of Brooks
Dustin
Koepka.
Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, Patrick Reed. That's 3 really good that's 3 really good golfers.
Okay. Alright.
Yeah.
No, I hear you. I can't make the point without proving your point, because you make a good point. They did go to live, and those are the 3 names that I don't if they stuck around on the PGA Tour, do I think they would still be in that same form and be on the team? Probably not, just because of how they've performed at majors recently. Patrick Reed
Sure.
actually hasn't played horribly.
He's got 2 wins on the DP World Tour already this year.
Yeah. No, yeah, he might be back, and that might be a name to look out for to come in as a veteran presence, but, I mean, if we're talking locker room guys, what's Patrick Reed doing for you?
He's
He's great
sinking
to fill
that
out the
dagger of a
roster.
putt. He's sinking the dagger of a
He's
putt.
filling out the roster, but all I'm asking for you is to just open your mind a little bit to some of these guys. Just like, the Højgaards, the Obergs, some of these guys that are coming in, filling out that European roster, they're going young right off the bat. Robert McIntyre, I couldn't tell you if he was 40 or 14,
Bobby Mack.
but he's a newer guy on the scene for them, and he's doing great things. So
But
I think the
he'd
U.S.
been
needs to
around
get
for
a
a
little
while.
younger. Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
It's
sort
time
of.
for a
But I
changing
think the
it's
U.S.
time for a
needs to get a
changing of
little
the guard.
younger, and we're ready to start winning some freaking Ryder Cups already. These last 2 have been embarrassing, and yeah, that's all I'm gonna harp on that. Just want to get your opinion.
Yeah.
I want to
I
talk
do
about.
like the name of Akshay Bhatia, though.
Yeah, he's great. He's great. He's playing incredible. He's got a great game. I don't. Again, I'm not gonna harp on it too much, but thank you for at least acknowledging that.
I do like it.
I do want to talk about one last thing with the PGA Tour. Some big talk right now is, should the players become a major? What do you think about that?
No! No!
Okay, just an
Absolutely
overwhelming
not!
no.
No! Listen,
Okay.
the PGA Tour does a great job hosting all these events, but people need to understand the difference between the PGA Tour, the PGA of America, the Masters, and then the Open, which is operated out of the PGA of Europe, I believe. The PGA Tour doesn't need a major. They've got all their signature events throughout the year that they're pumping money into. Like the course, TPC Sawgrass, a very good course, one memorable hole, right? What makes all these other majors great at the Open, right? You're in Great Britain, that general area, you're in Europe, and you're playing a bunch of different historical courses, link style golf. You've got the wind, you've got the elements. You don't know what it's going to look like from year to year. It's beautiful. US Open, you're moving to different spots around the country. You're playing tree line courses, you're playing hill courses, you're playing cliff courses, oceanside course. You're seeing a bunch of different views, right? PGA Championship, what's unique is that you're getting not just some of the best players in professional golf, but you're getting the opportunity for your coaches who are a part of the PGA of America, who are fostering the growth of golf throughout the world. You're getting them into the tournament. So I think that's unique. All you're asking for is for a when I say asking for, all you're looking at is the Players Championship, which is just an elevated event, to be a major. You'd have a better chance convincing me that Eastlake should be a major, which the whole FedEx Cup needs a whole revamp in and of itself. But yeah, there's just no reason for it to be a major. If you wanted it to be a major, the Players Championship, I think it has to move around. The only reason
Yeah.
Augusta National doesn't get to move around is the history behind it, the mystique behind the club, and honestly, just great press around it. And it's
Yeah.
created some of the best finishes. There's to me, and I'll probably get slammed by this, there's not a lot of crazy memorable finishes at the Players Championship. You can remember who won the Players Championship, but, like, remembering the epic moments that led up, 2 guys going back and forth, a 3rd guy jumps like, it just doesn't have that kinda history in my
I'm right there with you. I fully agree.
and Brandel
There
Chambly
are there are very few courses out there that I can think of that I would be like, this should host a major every year. Augusta's clearly one of them that should, but I don't see a world where it makes sense to me anyways that TPC Sawgrass would be that course. I will play devil's advocate on one thing. It's not just 17. I like 16 through 18. I like the whole finishing 3 holes coming down the par 5 over the trees on the left,
Okay,
with the water on the
then
right.
stay on the West Coast and just play the stadium
I hear you.
then
I
play the
hear you.
stadium course at
I hear
PGA
you. I'm not.
West.
I'm
It's
not
the
saying
exact
this.
same setup from Pete Dye. It's the same
I'm not. I'm
course.
not saying. I'm not saying that it should be. I'm just saying, let's give it the credit it has. The tournament has a different juice than some of the other just regular every weekend tournaments. It's fun, but yeah, there's and then there's also the side of it where it's, do you go and give all past winners a major? Do you count that toward their major count? Like, that's a conversation that's being had. There's so many like logistical factors of this. I'm like, it makes no sense. Why is this a conversation? I get it. You want to add a fifth major. They keep talking about it every year, but let's just leave it how it is. Let's mix in some more fun U.S. Open courses and PGA Championship courses, and let's have some fun there, picking out venues in that way. We don't need to add another one. So
That is that is what I do
yeah,
like about Live. There's not a ton I like about it, but man, they sign these short contracts with golf courses and they go out and they play in a bunch of different places. And I
yeah,
think that that's such an advantage for Live because you're not going to Silverado every year. I mean, guys love to go to Pebble, but you're not going to Pebble every year. You're not going to, where'd we just play? TPC Scottsdale. I mean, you just go to all the same courses every single year. But I mean, being able to mix it up, I think, is so unique. You get to play so many more unique, really well set up, really beautifully designed courses. I think that's really
yeah.
cool that Liv does that.
I hear you, and I couldn't agree more. Should we wrap this thing up with a little NBA trade deadline?
Yeah, let's put a nice little bow on this.
All right, I'm gonna get into the first part of it. Before we get into the winners and losers, I need to get into this Giannis thing. I cannot stand one thing about
Is this your
any
rant?
trade deadline. Yeah,
Is the
any
rant?
trade deadline in general. The conversation that becomes about the one star player that decides, I'm unhappy, I'm done. And this is not his first trade deadline that he's done this. He's done it the last 3 off seasons. He's done it the last 3 trade deadlines. I've heard that man's name more than I've ever heard it. It's unbelievable. And to sit there on both sides, from the organization standpoint and his standpoint, it infuriates me to see nothing but updates on the status of who they're talking to, what trades are being put out there. Everybody's saying, my team has a chance, my team. Nobody has a chance. They know behind closed doors that they're not trading this guy. They're trying to see if they can bait one team into giving an incredible haul that would set their franchise back years to come and revamp this thing. I get it. At at its core, nobody's just gonna rent Giannis for a year. He's a free agent next year. You're gonna have to convince him to sign an extension. So I get it. I get it. It's exciting. It's news. Maybe he goes to the Warriors, whatever. I'm done with it. I'm done with the trade talks, the potential of people making a move that is never going to be made. And I think it's more the franchise itself than it is him that are just ruining the trade deadline, because there were so many different moves that happened behind the scenes that nobody even knew were in play. I mean, obviously we thought Anthony Davis would find a new home, but who knew the Warriors or the Wizards were going to be in play for that? Who knew that Trae Young was going to go to the Wizards? Who knew that James Harden would be on the move until the last day when they finally said
Right?
his name out there? Like, there's so many different pieces of the league that we missed out on because we're all so focused on this guy. And also, there's so many teams that sat and waited and missed out on making trades that could make them better this year because they thought they had a chance. For example, the Warriors. They were sitting back, they were waiting for their call to say, hey, you know what you offered us is great, blah blah blah. Let's do it. Here's Giannis. Instead, they end up with this horrible Kuminga trade. They didn't get any better. They're not positioned better than they were before. Obviously, they have the unfortunate part of Jimmy Butler getting injured, but
Mhm.
There were so many different moves that they could have made to get better, not necessarily just for this season, but moving forward going into next season and pieces that they can add and assets and everything. Um, I think the whole league was put on halt for this guy. It sucks. I like him. I wanted him in Portland.
Yeah,
That's my
right.
rant. That's all I got on the Giannis thing.
Man, I think you're
Done
right on
saying his
that.
name.
They were just waiting for somebody, like you said, to overoffer, overextend, overreach, and then they would take it. Other than that, they had 0 intention of trading Giannis Antetokounmpo. And honestly, like, there's probably not a team this year that's in such a win now mode willing to take that risk. You know what I mean? Like, the teams that are good enough, I think, to win the NBA championship, they're not like, they don't need Giannis. Giannis doesn't fit their team or their mold for them to make it. You could argue maybe the Pacers, but then you'd have to give up, either a lot of picks or you'd have to give up somebody on your roster that you don't feel like giving up. Whether
And
that's a
even
guy
that
like
would be
Nembhard. Yeah, it just be you don't wanna do that.
Even that would be for the future, like, because the Pacers aren't winning this year, so that would be for the future, but then again, it comes back to you have to convince him to stay in a smaller market and re-sign with you, so what would be the point of doing it now rather than during the off season? So,
Yeah, valid.
I hear you and I agree completely that there was no team so many teams right now that are in the running and were going after him, believe enough in their roster that they didn't wanna give up everything to get him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yep,
think
okay.
I I love the rant, by the way, because I can't I don't think that could be more true, right? Kinda like the
Yeah.
whole honestly, like AJ Brown kinda holding the Eagles hostage a little bit. "Oh, I went out, oh" who was gonna overextend to try and grab AJ Brown? It's annoying, right? I will say Detroit Pistons, I was a little bit upset that they gave up Jaden Ivey. I thought that, he's an elite talent. But bringing in, Huerta and, I might mispronounce his name, Saric? Dario
Yeah.
Sarkic? Saric?
Saric, yeah,
Saric?
Dario
Yeah,
Saric, yeah, you
and
nailed
then
it.
you get a first round swap with Minnesota. I thought that was pretty cheesy. I thought
Let's
that was
use this
pretty
to get
cheesy.
into our who are your biggest winners and losers? Let's get into that.
Well, I think Detroit now is up there as number 1. Um, and then who was my other squad? Let me go back to the notes here real quick. That might be it. Honestly, I felt like a lot of moves really kinda went net neutral. Let's see here. I like the Mavs getting Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton,
Yeah,
you get a first round pick swap later this year. Granted, it's from the Thunder, so it's probably not good. Not a pick swap. You get their first round pick or one of their first round picks this year. Like I think that's great. It's probably not going to be a great pick because the Thunder are, they're probably going to go deep into the playoffs, if not win another championship. I like you get Chris Middleton, you get a little bit of a bigger body, you get a veteran presence. I think they also got Tyus Jones, or they got a point guard or somebody else in there to help kind of move the rock around. I like it. I like it. I'm not as
alright.
much of an NBA guy as you are in this current moment. I don't think the trade deadline did anything crazy. So I'm gonna let you lead this one here. Where are we at?
I
What do you
I
think?
think there's I'm gonna start with the losers.
Okay.
I'll just get back to the Warriors. I think they fell for the trap and they sat and waited too long and they didn't position themselves to do anything this year. It's gonna be really tough for them the rest of the way through. Um, there was definitely some options to make the team better, maybe in a smaller way than going and getting the big name, and they didn't do it. And then I'm gonna go over to the Lakers and say they're sort of losers. A lot of the same reason, but I
I'm
don't
just
think
so
their roster
tired of
is
talking about the Lakers. Ugh.
I know. I don't think their roster is that bad to the point where they were desperate for a huge move. I think they're starting to get their rhythm and they're starting to play a lot better. So I don't want to call them a full loser, but I think they waited and they were a little too complacent. And then to get into the winners, two names I got the Cavs as one. I really never liked Darius Garland's fit where he was at in Cleveland.
It was
I think
hard with
once they
Donovan
went and
Mitchell. It was hard.
exactly. It never really made sense. I'm a full believer in if it's not working, stop doing the same thing and go do something different. So they went and got James Harden. We'll see if it works out. So far, so good. I think he's kinda in the on the back end. He's found what his role is right now and moving forward. He's not the same James Harden, but he can really impact a winning basketball team. So, I like that move by the Cavs. The second name I got is the Pacers going to get, Zubac. I think that's gonna be a great piece
Yes.
next year. They're kind of filling that void that they lost with Miles Turner, but at the same time, he is the upside to be far better for them. So once Halliburton gets better next year or gets healthier next year, Pascal probably will be ready to go. The team's gonna get back to that NBA finals look, and they can kind of fill out the roster from there in the offseason. I thought they were the two biggest winners from what I saw. And then now the question is, if we're gonna bring up the NBA, I'm gonna talk about the Blazers for a second.
Let's talk Blazers.
They fall in the winner category for me, and let me tell you why.
Explain. Explain.
They didn't do anything desperate, and I think that's what everybody from a fan's perspective really wanted, was this big splashy move that really turned them into a contender this year, since we have, a roster that's worth running out on the floor finally. But I think that's where you get into danger territory of, you make a desperate move and it sets your franchise back for years to come. And we didn't do that. So we didn't make the move to make us better this year, but we didn't make a move that stunted our growth for next year. So I'll say Cronin showed a little poise. Still, he's 50-50 on these moves, man. He makes a good one and a bad one. I can't tell what I fully think of him as a GM yet, but to sit tight, I think it's
You
better
know,
than going and making a move I didn't like.
and he's out after this year. There's no way. New ownership
We'll
coming
see.
in there, he's getting kicked to the curb, no doubt.
Yeah, he might.
No doubt he's getting kicked to the curb. I did see one trade I thought was interesting for the Oklahoma City Thunder to pick up Jared McCain.
Love it.
I like it, but I feel like his body type and physicality for the way that they wanna play, I feel like he doesn't really match. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
OKC outside of Shea has kinda got some bigger guards that are really, really athletic, and Jared McCain can score, but I'm not sure if he provides that same level of defensive prowess or
Yeah,
physicality on the offensive side of the I just saw it and thought it was interesting,
he's
wanted to get your opinion.
yeah, he's not moving like a Case and Wallace, or he's not moving like a Lou Dort or any of their guards that they have on the roster right now. So I think it was more to give him another look. And obviously he can shoot the crap out of the ball, so that never hurts to have, but they didn't give anything up that's gonna hurt them in the long run. So why not go get a young guard who's cheap right now? I think Philadelphia's kicking themselves. They got grilled a little bit in a few press conferences on why they let McCain go for such a low price. Being young, obviously he's coming off of a big injury, but yeah, I think he's gonna fit in OKC, and that's one of those situations where we were talking about earlier, when you're in a good position and you're really rolling. You go and get those glamorous pieces that you can afford, because you don't need that draft pick this year. Honestly, you might not need one next year. Like, there you have a lot of room to work with. Why not go and really try and get the repeat?
Yeah, I love it. Last thing on the NBA, then we can wrap this thing up. You watching the All-Star game?
Probably not.
You block
Well,
you
I'm
block it
going
out your
to.
evening?
I'm going to watch it because I gotta support Denny. We got a Blazer in there. We got Klingon also in Young Hansen in the rookie. Well, I don't know what they call it now,
I
but
think it's like the Rising
Rising
Stars
Stars, yeah.
Challenge or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so we got a couple names out there. I'll give it a watch, but I'm not gonna be closely watching.
Yeah, no, it's not gonna dominate the afternoon or the evening, but if it's on, I guess we'll watch it. It's either that or
Yeah,
a James Bond movie.
yeah.
They had that marathon on Netflix. Anyways, folks, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for tuning in to episode 2 of the Know Your Personnel podcast. I'm Nathan. That's Jared. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you guys on the next one.
Peace.